Hello and welcome to the Boss It podcast. If you've not listened to Boss It before, well, what I'm doing is I'm talking to people from around the world, particularly with topics relevant to the software technology sector. And today I've got a very relevant subject and a very interesting person to speak to. So I'll be talking to Dr. Ulrich Kampffmeyer about artificial intelligence, which is very relevant because we've just seen the announcements over the last month regarding ChatGPT, but we've seen about Google Bard. So Ulrich, welcome to Boss It. Thank you very much for coming along. I was doing a bit of background research before our call, and I saw that we'd actually done an interview with you when Boss Equity used to be called Document Boss. I think we've been in contact with you then, and I had a read through that article as well. So you're becoming a regular.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation, Mark. It's really a pleasure to be on your channel tonight.
Super. Well, let's start off and talk about artificial intelligence. Actually, before that, let's talk a little bit about your background, because I think it's very relevant. And I thought it was quite interesting because doing some reading, I see that you started off with archaeology, and you're now talking about the latest technology of artificial intelligence and machine learning. You've spanned the ages. I think in one section it was talking about that your specialist subject was prehistory. Now you're talking about the future. That's a big topic that you cover.
Well, the background is easy to explain. When I was 7 years old, I received a book for birthday, I think it was my 7th or 8th birthday, about Heinrich Schliemann and the excavation at Troja. So from that time on, I wanted to become an archaeologist. And already during my school days, I was on digs and writing articles. But I was a little bit mad about new technologies. And so when it comes to my studies in Göttingen and Kiel, I tried to introduce earth science, computer science, knowledge science, and other stuff. And everybody said, "Oh, he's a weird guy." Today, everybody takes a computer into digging. Everybody uses image processing for archaeological finds. Everybody uses statistics. And in those days, in the 70s and early 80s, that was really stuff from the technology point of view far in the future. So I'm always scared about the future.
Yes. I mean, I've known your name because, when we were Document Boss, very much focused in and around document management and still in contact with a lot of people in that industry. So I associated your name with document management, enterprise content management, pattern recognition, image processing, digital optical archiving. There's a lot of technology there that you got involved with. What were you doing specifically with those technologies?
Well, when we discuss these, for example, at events like CeBIT in the good old days,
yes,
I believe Document Boss was far off the track, because in those days we already talked about information management and information governance. And all the other terms like ECM, CSPs, DMS, IAM, EM, and so on, these are only marketing slogans for stuff we always need to use in companies and organizations. And from time to time, the marketeers have the idea that the terms are no longer sexy. And
yes.
so they come up with new ideas for new slogans. So when we talked last, I think it was a joint discussion where as well John Mancini was interviewed on the same issues. In those days, I think enterprise content management was a term mostly used internationally. And that is only a small part of information management and information governance, because we have today to think outside of the company walls. A lot of information is in the cloud, on partner portals, and somewhere else distributed. And we even don't manage to get control of the information inside the business. And with new developments like ChatGPT or all the other environments which are coming up by Baidu, Amazon, Google, name them, creating more and more knowledge and information outside the enterprise, which is out of control.
Yes. I mean, knowledge management is one of the things that I want to talk to you about a little bit more later on, because it's a term that I associate probably going back 25 or more years, and it sort of fell out of favor. But I mean, you're founder of Project Consult. You're a keynote speaker. I know that you've written a number of books, 5 or 6 books around the topic of being able to control him and use information. You've been for quite some time. I've always associated you with the committee of the AIM organization, the Association of Information and Image Processing. Is it? I always forget the
name. They have a new name for some
do they?
time.
I'm pleased, because I always forget this
from
one.
the Association for Information and Image Management to
Image management.
Association
That's it, yes.
to Intelligent Information Management, which was a good move. They could keep their logo and the AIIM, just switching one of the terms.
Yeah, that was, I mean, when we first started Document Boss back in 1999, that was the association that where a lot of our clients were, and then we sort of broadened out from that. But I remember that very, very well. But now you're also looking at this area of artificial intelligence. There's been an enormous upsurge in interest. 50% of the conversations that I'm probably having currently are mentioning about AI. I've been doing quite a lot of work in that area for the last few years. And I think even the general public now are aware of it, and they're starting to experience it. First of all, let's start off. What are the positive aspects from your perspective of artificial intelligence?
Well, I think artificial intelligence is still a hype, because we can't easily define what is intelligence with humans. And machines work differently than our brain. We're talking about algorithms here. And all the features we see today are about architectural models and algorithms. In fact, we are not in the age of artificial intelligence, but we are in the age of self-learning algorithms. That would fit more. And you recognize algorithm can easily replace artificial. So that's one thing. The other thing is artificial intelligence, the ideas have been around for a long time. When I worked first in this direction, that was with the Fraunhofer Institute in 1985, where I worked on expert systems. Expert systems was in those days the term for what we call today some kind of automation, robotic automation, and even artificial intelligence. Because expert systems were rule-based engines using a defined base of information for delivering results, for example, in geo-exploring or other areas. And these expert systems, rule-based, caused always a lot of work, because all what we have in our brains, we tried to transfer in these algorithms. So these kind of expert systems went out of the market. That was in the 80s. And if we look in the early 90s, probably you remember the software Ask Jeeves.
I do, very well.
It was a search engine,
yes,
which already used such technology. Or Northern Light, another search engine, which used auto-classification for their results. And so certain trends were already visible. And there were a lot of companies around which called their software already AI, artificial intelligence. But the real first pioneer, I believe, was IBM with Watson, who really made it to the ground to create a product out of AI. But as IBM so often did, they were not able to market it properly. You remember those days of OS2, you remember the days of Lotus, and now
Yes.
you see Watson, what was really a good machine, because it followed a quite different concept than all the new approaches to artificial intelligence we see today, which are large language models. And engines like Seam or IBM's Watson, they focused on real good results based on facts with sources, links to the sources, so that they generate quality information. And this kind of systems is designed for inside the enterprise. And what we see today with ChatGPT or BART, if you believe it,
Yes.
these are all systems creating some kind of chatbots with AI based on large statistical models, language models, designed for the masses. And the good thing with ChatGPT is that it changes the perception
Yes.
and the exception of AI. That means now millions of people are using it. The servers are breaking down at OpenAI. They had to close down for certain periods. And I think this is the real advantage we see today. Not just artificial intelligence, but a new kind of user interfaces using NLP, natural language processing, which is easy to understand, which delivers not a hit list, but an answer to a question. And that really changes the scene. Before that, artificial intelligence was something for specialists. Now,
Yes.
today, everybody thinks he can use and talk about and do a lot of things using these chatbots, which are only a small part of what is really artificial intelligence when it comes down to information science.
Yes. I mean, artificial intelligence, as far as I'm aware, is a term that was created back in the 1950s. I think it was Alan Turing who was involved with coming up with that term. And I think that, like you mentioned about marketing and hype, is that you need a way for the human mind to be able to comprehend something that is very, very technical. What we have now is not just the concept, but we have that ability for people to experience and probably get quite good results, so they benefit from something that they've probably only heard about until recently. I mean, one of the other things with the human mind is that with current searches, when you're searching, and for instance, if you wanted to get to understand a complex subject, you can do a Google search, but you're overloaded with information, too much information. And I think that the potential here is to be able to take and summarize information, both sides of the argument, to be able to bring it to a conclusion. There's always the issue regarding the source of that information, and we both understand the importance of that, because anyone can publish information, both false and accurate, on the internet. But overall, it does enable you to do what you currently do with Google in a very long-winded way, in a much, much simpler way. And the human mind does need to do that. To approach a new topic, you need to somehow get an overview and a grasp of it before you go into the detail. And I think that's really important. And I think that actually having Microsoft and Google seeing this front end to their search as now being very important because of the attention that it draws, is going to be a good thing for most people, because there's going to be a lot of money thrown at this.
There's a lot of money, that's sure. Some points you discussed in your answer are very interesting, because one thing is the different concepts of Microsoft and OpenAI and Google.
Yes.
Microsoft and especially OpenAI is using a controlled, fixed set
Yes.
of training material.
Yes.
And their restriction is July 21, because then they stop training, because their machines would have very broken down. And the current ChatGPT uses GPT-3, and they have behind their back, ready for launch, GPT-4, which is more far developed. And the training basis of GPT-4 is nearly 50 times the training basis of GPT-3. They keep this behind today to have an answer if Google or any of the other competitors, you know, Amazon has as well a lot of stuff.
Yes.
Meta has stuff. Baidu has stuff. Tencent is developing software in this direction. So all the big companies are working on this. And I think OpenAI and Microsoft choose the time very carefully to bring this up. Beginning of this year, where the big hype is there, where all the publications write about new trends, where every CEO of a company is looking, what is coming up in December and January. I think the time they choose to promote ChatGPT was great. And I believe they were overcome by the success they had. They were astonished.
Absolutely. Yeah? When you look at the adoption of ChatGPT, it is phenomenal. It's not a trend line, it's a vertical line. They've had so many users. And I think it's really interesting to see the reaction of Google in the fact that they took people off of other projects to say, we have got to launch something they were working on, which is based on the Lambda model, language model, but they took people off of other projects and they brought back Larry Page to also be a consultant on this, to get this out as quickly as possible. Now that's Google, one of the biggest organizations in the world that, as regards search, are in a very dominant position, but they saw this as a really big threat and have had to react to it. That shows you how impactful that is for a large organization to have to muster the forces and throw everything at it to get their version out. And we're told that it will come out barred within the next few days or weeks. That's the latest information I have. I mean, obviously, so looking at that with great interest. What are your thoughts about that battle and what's happened?
Well, if we are looking on the Google side, Google had quite a lot of different teams working on different types of artificial intelligence. They have a team on BERT, for example, B-E-R-T, not BARD, where they kicked out people lately. You know, when all the big companies tried to reduce staff, and now they're trying to hurry up because they were overcome by the quality of ChatGPT, the date when it was launched. They were not prepared for anything massive like this, and due to the fact that GPT has already a big training base, where Google is aiming with BART to use the internet. And they have to work a lot on filters for avoiding propaganda, filtering out hate speech, filtering out child pornography, and all this other stuff, keeping the data in line with GDPR, which is important for Europe, to have some data security, data privacy issues, and all this had to be implemented in a very short term. And so they failed with their announcements yesterday evening. And even they didn't show BART in action. This was a predefined, pre-prepared presentation, and they even messed it up.
They had a mistake.
Although
Yes.
a normal Google search would have showed the correct answer, they messed it up. What I see when talking with colleagues like you and other with whom I'm regular contact, the complete industry woke up.
Mm.
It's not only Google who was astonished. Even Apple, with all their technology around their own operating system, don't having any third-party software providers in this arena are endangered now. And the big danger for Google is ChatGPT doesn't have advertisements. And
Yes.
so one of the very big financial resources of Alphabet and Google, the advertisement, is in danger. And that's why they reacted so fast, I think too fast. They should have waited for some time, putting more effort in testing with specialists, putting more effort in cleansing the data for training, and looking for real USPs. They thought using the internet is USP enough. But I think the other idea, having links to the original content, providing context, would be more attractive for end users than just using the internet stuff.
Yes. Yes, that's very true. I mean, that small mistake has cost them a lot of money in share price.
Yeah, I think 7% down, but they are already rising again.
Yes, exactly.
I didn't sell them.
No, not quite yet. I mean, one of the things that I found interesting, because most of my conversation, I'm talking to senior executives in software companies, software development companies, software vendors, has been, even when they talk about AI within their own technology, is their lack of thought sometimes, and their lack of willingness to see the implications of AI. They're busy men, they've got their head down. And I think that's probably one of the things that you do, is you bring that thinking into an organization, you bring that objective thinking in. For software vendors, I think it's going to have really big impact. I think it's going to be much bigger impact than most of them realize now. I mean, talking more generally about the impact of AI, I think it's difficult for the mind to comprehend exactly where we will be in 10 years or even 5 years with AI, especially when you've got really the largest organizations in the world throwing a lot of money and battling. Whenever there's a battle like that between two big powers, you see an acceleration. It's a bit like during a war, you see an acceleration of technology. And I think we're going to see a similar thing. We've got a technology battle here. And I think that for the most part, that's going to be a very positive thing. But what do you see are the implications for software developers and vendors? You know, a lot of your potential clients and the people that you know very well of AI.
Well, first of all, do you remember the browser wars?
Yes. Yes.
We are in a similar situation.
Yes.
Yeah, and this fight for artificial intelligence, the predominance, will go on, I think, for 1.5 years, and then there will be one platform which has most of the attraction. And my bet would be, although they had this bad start, Google has a good chance because they have most of the resources on it. On the other hand, I see a world developing with free software, open content. There are a lot of good algorithms from the academic scene available on platforms where any company can use this open source software.
Mm.
So they will develop this world. And I want to make a distinction between the world of the internet, where everybody can use these software tools, where nobody will care about data privacy and all the other stuff. Oh, it's just nice, let's use it.
Mm.
And the other very big market inside the companies. And inside the companies, people are lagging behind.
Mm.
They have a lot of legacy software. They are thinking about AI. So if it now comes to a software manufacturer, a software vendor, or a software provider, like those who have the big platforms, they are now aiming for the masses to establish a standard, to be the one. And on the other hand, you have all the governments, you have the companies, you have organizations who have the problem of getting a grip on their internal data. And they don't want to use an external search engine on their internal data or copy their data somewhere in the cloud or in the internet to use translation or ChatGPT. They need internal solutions. And you're in the M&A market. Probably you have heard about the German pharmaceutical company, BioNTech, who bought an AI company.
Yeah, I've seen that in
to
several
get
areas.
an own AI department. And
Yeah.
this is a complete different market. And they are not looking for large language models. They are looking for new type of knowledge presentation, of retrieval, of organizing structure and information inside the company. So that will be the big question for all these mid-sized and small vendors. Do we want to compete with Google, Microsoft on the big public market? Or do we want to specialize on inside markets, on certain industry? For example, AI for financials, AI for pharmaceuticals, AI for e-government. And that will be the big differentiator in 2023, I believe.
I think also it's interesting because we've had a lot of discussion about low code platforms, which is essentially the ability to give the ability of people to write software to more people, or to be able to write code faster with reusable modules. But AI is also promising, and ChatGPT, you can today ask it to write some code for you in the language that you request. That is going to accelerate the technology, the general technology development that that we're seeing. Change is constant, but there's an accelerating pace of change, which I think is something that companies are also perhaps going to struggle with, because in the past, we've always had change, but today the future is coming at you at an accelerated pace, and AI is going to accelerate that, I believe.
Yes,
so that's
but
that.
There's one big challenge, and this challenge is called interface.
Well, that was my second point I was going to make, which is
because
currently,
all the old vendors try to create monolithic solutions which don't communicate with the rest of the world.
The number of people that senior executives, I won't name them, but I've spoken to senior executives about their own software, and they've smiled and they've said, I don't know, I've never used it. It's too complicated for me. They're creating solutions that is very difficult for the human person to be able to get a full grip of it. It's very difficult. But surely AI could be the wrapper around some of these technologies, where the interface between the human and a software solution, if that was more intelligent, if that was able to respond, even by voice or by, by typing, then that would help in many, many different areas, because we've all seen those big monolithic solutions. They do a lot of things if only you knew how to do it.
Mhm. Well, some ideas on that. The user interface will change dramatically.
Yes.
And normal language, as we use today, will be the death of the keyboard. The
Yes.
keyboard will die,
Yes.
surely.
Yes.
It's already old-fashioned technology.
It
Yeah.
is. It is. Yeah.
Man was not designed to use a keyboard. Man was designed to talk and to see and to listen.
Absolutely.
And we and
It's a
we will
strange way
get
to
back to
communicate.
this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
You've been.
one thing.
Yeah.
That's on the user interface. And that's what I said earlier. It's one of the big accomplishments of Chat GPT, changing the user interface,
Mm.
making it more human.
Yes. We can already see that even if you ask a question of Chat GPT and
Yes.
you don't phrase the question correctly or you don't
Yeah.
spell it correctly, it will interpret and it does a pretty good job.
Yeah.
That's a lot of potential for interfaces.
By the way, I found myself talking to ChatGPT with begging and addressing it politely.
So did I. Please,
Well,
please, could you?
yeah, that's a very big change. And I saw a advertisement for a job lately where a big company searched for a prompter. You know what a prompter is?
Being using the technology, yes, to
Yes,
know how to use it, yes,
a specialist how to use software with chatbots
yes.
or other AI interface. A chatbot is only one possible interface. Other companies already are working for blindsided people or people who can't hear or people who can't speak on
Mm,
interfaces supported by artificial intelligence. But
mm.
it's in the scientific area now. But coming back to of your questions, where I had the feeling that you're asked for all the hindrances of using AI. And my business did a lot of consulting in regards to records management, information governance, and all these things, structuring information so that you can make good quality use of your information.
Well, that's yes, that there's a couple of really interesting topics that relates to. So
Mhm.
if we are seeing that there is a potential for AI and improving interfaces to start to get rid of keyboards, which when you think about it, is a crazy way to try and communicate with software via a keyboard. If you could do it via speech, I mean, so much easier.
Mhm.
Um, but how many companies today that may be excited about the opportunity of AI and can see it as a potential competitive advantage in their market, and I'd like to talk about that separately, are not
Mhm.
ready for AI because their data isn't in the condition that it can be fully leveraged. I see that as a big problem. There's almost a stage that they need to go through in being
Mhm.
able to, and this is your specialist subject,
Yeah.
of getting access to that information, going back to the promise that came about with knowledge
Mhm.
management, to be able to just do a search on all of the data you've got within your organization to get the right answer. That was
Mhm.
definitely overhyped. And that was
Yes.
25 years ago, and people dropped that term, didn't they? I mean, it started to, it was overhyped. And then I think they realized there was a lot of bad associations with that. You couldn't do that very easily. But now we're at a stage where that's within grasp, but they still need to get organized.
Okay, you're putting again several topics
Yes,
in
sorry.
your comment. First thing is
I didn't say this
knowledge
podcast would be easy.
management. Knowledge management was in around the 2000s, but one reason for the death of knowledge management was that the US and Europeans have a different perception what knowledge is.
Yes.
In the US, people put a advertisement on a scanner saying this is a device for knowledge management. And in Europe, we are highly sophisticated philosophers thinking about really knowledge as a very high thing.
Separate from data. You
Yes,
have data
separate from data, different
and knowledge.
Layers. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
And, knowledge management is coming back.
I think so.
Because all the old technologies to use existing data and information in a company, like document management or records management, only touched a certain amount of information in the company. Let's say 10%. And 90% may be outdated, rotten, or trivial. This amount is growing at a rate which is as steep as the curve for ChatGPT. I still wait when the curve topples over.
Yeah.
Which is with mathematics not possible.
Yes.
The situation here, when you talk about organizations, companies or e-government organizations, there are a lot of reasons why they cannot use these new technologies. One is the quality of data. That's correct. The other is interfacing these data with user protection, privacy protection, access rights, and all the other stuff. They created silos. Level 2. Level 3 is they have a lot of legacy systems, which they must run, otherwise they will be out of business. Number 4 is what AI technology to use. Own one from the market, waiting for Google. There's a lot of discussion going on, but no decisions made. Because a lot of the budgets are bound for keeping the existing IT alive and not changing everything. And I believe the most important reason why, because this doesn't work out, is they lack people with understanding.
Yes.
There are only few people who really look in depth into AI, who understand algorithms, who are data scientists, information scientists.
Yes.
And we lack these specialists. And without these specialists, I believe most of these pilot projects, these hyped pilot projects, the CEOs of the big industry companies are promoting on conferences what they do. They're just hyped. They don't work out. They're lagging behind.
Yes. And there's a lack of awareness regarding that lack of experience around the data scientists. And that's a problem in itself, because if you don't know you've got the problem, you're not going to solve it. So that's a big issue.
No, there's no big issue. They may hire you or me. Well, the complete consulting and advisor business depends on certain lacks in traditional organizations.
That's true. Yes. Yeah. I'd like to throw another question at you, which is, because of some of the issues that we've discussed regarding some of the larger organizations that have monolithic systems, have restrictions about the way that they could potentially use AI, and because of the amount of information that they have and the complex processes that they have within their organizations, if we are to accept, and I believe that's true, that artificial intelligence can give you a competitive advantage in the market, because if you give your customer a better service, then you have an advantage. If you can respond to his needs faster, if that response is of a higher quality, more suited to his needs, then does that not give an advantage to startups who don't have the issues with old legacy technology, with very restrictions around how they can operate, but this big mountain of information that they've got to organize. They start from fresh, they use AI from the start, and then they just progress very quickly. Could that not change the market dramatically?
It will change certain markets. But we see a lot of stable companies out there in their markets. And these companies have different problems. If you think about those companies who only produce paper and no other products, meaning they are working with data.
Yes.
They have a lot of homogeneous data, which is only differentiated by probably an address or a case number.
Mm.
They need another strategy to access information than a company who produces plastic plates. So it really depends on the use case. But there are two arenas where AI can easily succeed. One is the help systems for your own users. Using AI based help, which is in context,
internally,
which provides you videos where you don't have to go through a training, which really explains a new functionality. So help and support systems will profit a lot from AI, and the jobs will change. And on the other hand, you mentioned better customer support. That's true. If you look on all these chatbots which are used today for communication with a client who has a problem, they can easily be improved by AI. And even giving some empathy when answering.
Absolutely, yes, yes.
Empathy, human
Yes.
touch will be an issue with these communication systems, but that generates other problems for the company because they have to document the answers the AI chatbot is giving to the customer, because it could be relevant for liability, warranty, and other stuff. So the information for such a type of chatbot has to be very good, very structured, and legally approved.
Yeah.
So that's no easy solution which works with just putting a chatbot on all your information and the customer will be satisfied. It will be opposite.
Yes. I will be talking about AI with empathy in a future podcast, maybe in a few months' time. There's a couple of organizations, and I think that's a really important point. I'd challenge one point that you said slightly, which is that talking about the sort of the more stable organizations, for instance, a manufacturer of paper plates.
Yeah.
If you had a manufacturer of paper plates and you assume that they have, maybe hundreds of different paper plates, if AI was used at the front end to engage with customers, the sort of problem that I think it could solve is AI be empathetic, and it could also provide useful information when there was a question. But for instance, if it was able to recognize me as an individual and I couldn't remember what plate my organization used, I could ask it and it could respond, and it could tell me information about previous invoices and orders. I would then tend to be more inclined to buy my paper plates from this company because it smoothed the process. It made things easier for me. It made my life a lot easier. I don't have to have records and order numbers and have a lot of information. Even there, in a very traditional old style type business, there's an advantage, which means it could gain more market share.
Well, that is only a question of user interface, because taking your example,
Yes.
a company producing paper plates. Okay, good. What they need to do is recognize the customer, understand the question, and all the rest is based on the data they have in their SAP, in their CRM, which has only collected and presented in another way. That
Mm.
can be done easily. But what do you think the management of this paper company is discussing today, and where they will be investing? That will be different. They will be discussing that paper plates will be forbidden, and that you have to issue recycling stuff which you have to return.
Mm.
Their market is under pressure.
Yes.
And so a lot of companies don't think about new possibilities, but trying to save somehow their old-term business models. And that's a big challenge for a lot of industries. And
I
if you
see.
look, for
Yes.
example, in e-government has been promising for years that you get all these services via a central portal, that you can make use of these. Yes, this portal can make use of a new interface with AI, but behind it, it's chaos and paperwork. And we touched it earlier. I don't see that a lot of companies are already prepared and ready to use AI as a complete new approach, because AI changes a lot inside the company. It overcomes hierarchy. It questions all the user rights and roles you have installed for years. It questions quality of information. It questions marketing strategy. It will be a complete switch from normal marketing channels to the internet.
Mm.
A lot of changes coming, a lot of work for us.
Yes, that's right. Yes, and I think any new technology creates challenges and also some fear. When the automobile was introduced initially, in many parts of the world, you had to have somebody carrying a red flag in front of it because they were scared that it would run people down. Look at it now. And I think some of the fear that we see around artificial intelligence is probably the same. Same as when electricity first came into people's homes. There were some people who wouldn't have it because of that fear. What do you think are going to be the main benefits over, say, the next 2 or 3 years from AI?
Wow, that is an interesting question. I put to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT would give you 20 answers, and five would be good. Okay, I take these 5 out of the back of my head. Well, one is the awareness and acceptance of artificial intelligence as a useful tool. I think that's very important. We discussed the user interface issue, getting new, easy ways to access information, getting the right information that helps globalization, although we have a trend backwards to localization, but it really makes the old idea of Bill Gates, information at your fingertips. We are there now with touchscreen and ChatGPT. The second point is we will face a lot of hurdles and barriers created by, well, the bureaucrats in legal departments, in the government, on the EU level, who will say, no, it's dangerous. It doesn't protect data privacy. It will create new method for attack. Phishing will be more easy, and there will be easy access to attack old systems and all the other stuff. I think these two forces will fight for the next years, but the advantages will win.
Yes.
Number 3 is, I believe the most important task for artificial intelligence is to save mankind to destroy itself and the planet.
Wow. That's an
Well,
interesting thought.
after,
That's
yes,
not
ask
common.
that every vendor. Yes,
Yes,
that's beyond ethical and all the other stuff. Yeah, and
I like that.
yeah, number 4 will be AI will create really complex environments where IoT, PCs, phones, glasses, earphones, everything will merge.
Yes, it's
And
a fusion of technology.
yes, and we're at the brink of making technology part of ourselves.
Yes,
In the past, technology was a tool,
yes,
like a flintstone for working on wood.
yes.
But now we become part of the tool, and there will be some cyborgs. We will become cyborgs within the next 7 years. That's number 4. By the way, none of these was from ChatGPT.
I know.
And number 5 is an important question. AI is complex. AI can generate code. This code can generate AI. So this AI will be self-developing, will be self-expanding. It will, there are also the first projects which demonstrated this, it will work to avoid being deleted by having copies and synchronization and all the other stuff. AI can work in a way that it prevents deletion, right? Which is very dangerous. And that leads us to the question, if we have this very complex AI, very complex algorithms, creating more complex algorithms, who will control this? Who will manage this? Who will govern this?
Because who will
We
understand
know.
it?
Yes, who is the guardian? Therefore, the guardians. Yes, and then there will be another AI on a higher level, guarding, controlling, auditing, managing this complex environment. And we will see a situation where no man any longer understands what happens on this technology layer, combining IoT, communications and other stuff. It's so complex that only AI with a superior AI can manage this. And that's the point where we should start early enough about dangers.
Yes, that's right. Yes, it's not so much the fear and trying to hold back progress on AI, it's being aware of that potential danger and planning ahead and understanding where that may come from. And I think that's a really good point. I think I've just been.
That's why it's good to have a prehistorian and archaeologist on it.
Absolutely.
Because I can see from the past what
Yes.
happened.
Yes.
The Bronze Age decline was a breakdown in globalization in those days. We're seeing the same.
Yes.
All the developments today we already had in the past, and we must learn from the past. And that's why I'm combining the past with the future and putting it just together.
I think that's a great way to end the podcast. Actually, we've been going nearly an hour, which has been great. It's been fascinating to speak to you. I knew it would be. I really did, and I think that I've got some other podcast planned talking around the subject of AI, but it could be quite likely I'll come back to you and say, let's do another podcast and let's talk about this particular area, because I think today has been a really interesting one. I think we'll get some good feedback on this. So thank you very much.
It was great to be on your podcast. And if you like to have me again, it will be a pleasure.
Fantastic. I've really enjoyed it. So thank you very much for coming along. Well, that was Dr. Ulrich Kampffmeyer. As you heard, I found it a fascinating conversation, and I think you will as well. So, but please do give me feedback. As you've heard, that planning to do more of these podcasts around a particular topic, because I think it is a very interesting topic. and one that we really need to dig into. But any questions, any other topics that you'd like me to cover, then please let me know. Until the meantime, look after yourself and see you again. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye from Hamburg.